Hey, what's up, friends? Ray with Doc at Timworks. How y'all doing? Returning viewers, thanks for coming back in. New viewers, thanks for checking out the channel. So I landed a load of big cherry. I can't wait to get into it and kind of push this lathe here to the max a little bit. Well, maybe not the max because I've got the bowl attachment outboard, but inboard I want to push it to the max. Probably put a 22-inch blank on it, but I got to get to this guy first. So I kind of cut the edge off, which was maybe a little bit of a mistake because it kind of forced my hand into what I can turn with it. All right, so here it is. Look at this thing. This is my first winged bowl, and I turned it green out of cherry. Now look at that crazy warping. This is the most warping I've ever got out of a bowl. This was turned once and green out of cherry, and it's a crotch piece. So you've got a lot of different angles of wood coming in and stressing and pulling it this way and that way. The wings went really thin, and this side here is really dipped down. So this was a really cool piece to turn. Stick around and see how we turn this piece. It's kind of splitting right here along an existing path, and this tree had quite a bit of ring shake in it from the various pieces. So I can't really go this route because I kind of messed that surface up. So I'm going to put a woodworm screw in here, and then I'll probably try one of those emerging bowl type things, or maybe not emergency, but a winged bowl. Have a bowl here and then the wings out here. I've never tried one of those, never done one, but let's do one and see how it turns out. Totally center the piece. It should be pretty cool, hopefully. This is a 3/8 drill bit to fit on this PMI screw chuck. That's kind of a dedicated screw chuck. That looks about right. Get in there. All right. All right, it's even gonna let us get up to like 700 RPM. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so here we go on my first winged bowl. And I haven't watched many videos on this. I just know that there's a bowl inside, say a square or a triangle or what have you. And you have a little bit of the rim above the wings, and you have the bowl below the wings, and you try and make the bowl below and above the same size, right? It should be easy enough, right? All right, we'll see. All right, so this bowl took quite a bit longer than say, just an average little utility bowl. So I had to chop this up quite a bit, not to look like I'm, a fast, speedy turner, but for y'all's sake. Nobody's got 3 hours to sit and watch a guy do the same thing over and over again. So I want to be transparent with you guys and let you know that this video is quite highly edited. All right, I don't want somebody to sit there and be kind of bummed out because my video shows a bowl being turned in half the time that it takes them. I'm doing this so that we can get through this video, learn what we need to learn from it, enjoy what we can enjoy from it, and then move on. It's not an all-day episode. It's not a life-consuming, event. I just want y'all to be able to come in, spend some time with me, see what I'm doing, and then move on with your day or on to the next video, right? All right, so what I mean when I say it's highly edited. Okay, so at a portion like this, where it might take me 20 passes with the same tool, doing the same motions, I might show 3 or 4 of those passes, and that shaves 2 minutes off. And then we move to the next step, and I show 1 out of 10 passes, and that shaves 3 minutes off, and so forth. That's what I mean by highly edited and time condensed for you guys. It's just removing a lot of the bulk fluff that's repetitive motions over and over and over again. So what we're doing right here is we're kind of, I want to say, blocking this in. We are getting the rough shape, the rough dimensions, and the idea of the bowl formed in my head.
Now most people put a smaller little bowl in there. I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet. See if I can get a little more speed. I'm getting quite a bit of chip out.
Okay, so a project like this is not my normal cup of tea. I like utility bowls, you know, salad bowls, breakfast bowls, serving bowls, whatever you want to call them. Just a basic bowl. I like to get in there and just hog out the material, do a few refining cuts, do some quick sanding, and be done with it. The nature of this beast is there's a lot of stopping and starting and seeing the progress of what's going on.
Okay, the chip out's pretty much cleaned up. I want to come back to the top and take some more off the top, but only to the point where it needs to be round. So I don't take away from, I want that bowl to pop up off the top.
Okay, and so what I'm getting at there is I'm wanting to block in the top. I'm wanting to take the top of the wing down enough to establish basically the top of the bowl, which is basically a bead that will be protruding from the top before I take too much of the bottom of the wing away, and then I can't take the top down any further. So it's just a couple of steps that I'm working through in my mind before I make a move or mistake that can't be undone, and then I would just have to like basically take the wings off and just have a bowl. Another thing I mentioned earlier was a lot of people would have a smaller bowl and they're highlighting the wings more. And I thought about that in the beginning, but it's just not me, because at the end of the day, I'm more of a utility guy, and that bowl is a very large bowl and is perfect. It's a shallow bowl, so it's perfect as an everyday carry bowl, as I like to call them, for wallets, keys, you know, your everyday carry stuff, pocket knife, change, pistol, whatever. Catch-all bowl is another good phrase for them. All right, so as we see there, this is really starting to kind of take shape. The wings are getting thinned down and taking their form. The bowl is starting to get its form. One thing to note, like I said, this was turned green. The thinner I get on these wings, the more they want to warp and move while I'm turning. And I can feel them flex, especially there's a portion, this was a crotch piece, and there's a portion in there that's sapwood, and that stuff is really soft and flexing. And I wanted to keep the elements of the live edge in there. There's two streaks of live edge with a little bit of, not really bark, but the cadmium layer beneath the bark still intact. And that's that darkness that you see right there. The other ones that don't have that is because that's where it was cut with the chainsaw. So it's kind of a five, you know, like a pentagon, and three of the sides are chainsaw cuts and two of them are natural edge, which again makes it even more unique. And so now everything's getting blocked in. I need to form my tenon, as that will give me the final curves that I need. That will establish the true bottom of the bowl instead of just eyeballing and guessing. And then with the rim and the wings out established on the outside, then I can connect the curve. So if you try to connect your curve or make your curve before everything's said and done, and when you form your tenon, you might have to go back and change that curve to make everything line up and look good. I'm really big on the flow and the feel of the bowl. I learned this from Richard Raffin. You know, he goes on and says at the end of the day, 20, 30 years down the road, the difference between a bowl that's tossed off, burned into the burn pile, sold at the dollar store, or as a family cherished heirloom is the form. Okay, because the finish will be gone, the grain will be gone, it will patina over, and it will be kind of a dull looking wood color. But if it feels good in your hands, if it looks good aesthetically to the eye, it's going to be kept and cherished. If it was not like that, it's going to be cast aside. So form and the look of the bowl is critical. So right here, the tenon is established, and I'm using my shear scraper to refine the curve a little bit, and it gets in there. I want to, if I refine the curve a little bit, I got to come back and make sure that that shoulder is flat, that there's at least a small flat section at the bottom for the jaws to register on and get a firm grip. This is a large piece. I don't have it handy right now, but I would say with the wings flipping out there, that it's every bit of 20 inches. There's barely enough room for my banjo to clear beneath them. And in the beginning, I believe I had to be careful and angle the banjo outwards. I can't tell from this angle if that's still the case, if that protrudes down below the banjo or not. And I got on a kind of a long rant about the form, and I missed the part where I had that little skate back and then actually hit my arm on the wing. And I wanted you all to see that it was not a lack of concentration and I bumped my arm into the wing. It was the skate back. I messed up forming the tenon. I had a skate back and that moved my arm back into the wing. So that's one of the greatest hazards with doing these winged ones. And the larger the wing, the greater the hazard is. That was a real one right there. It got me. Okay, so a lot of people will sometimes put a blue piece of tape or something out on their tool rest to mark the final diameter of the bowl so that you don't get caught by the ghost or the, there's a lot of air and movement and it's not a solid form and you can kind of lose track of where it actually is and get hit like that. Luckily, the 2 times I got hit turning this bowl was, the meaty part of my forearm. But right there's a kind of a dangerous game where I had my knuckles in there. Now, getting your knuckles smacked and the meaty part of your arm smacked is 2 different stories. And you can really get injured doing these type of things. I've seen some radical bowls that have like some 6-inch wings out on them. And if you get cracked by one of those, it might be a trip to the ER. So, friends, be careful and do what you can to stay away from those wings. I have a bad habit of adjusting my tool rest while the piece is in motion. The best practice for that is to stop the lathe, move your tool rest, and begin again. Like I said, that's a bad practice that I have ingrained into me, and it's very difficult for me to work around because I've been doing it from the start, and like I said, it's ingrained into me. All right, and so now I'm taking the time and doing a decorative tenon because I've just gotten into that habit where I don't like to reverse the bowls anymore. A bowl like this was already in the long. This thing probably took a whole day to turn. I'm talking about between the messing with it, and it probably took 4 or 5 hours. And I consider that a whole day of turning. I can't sit down there and be in the shop for 8 hours straight, standing up and just turning straight. So 4 to 5 hours is about all I can get out of a day of turning. So I'm taking the time and I'm making the tenon look good down at the bottom because I'm going to leave it on. and I'm kind of hollowing the tenon out and putting a couple of little grooves on there, and it should be a perfect tenon where I can just grip it with my jaws. And those are Vicmark. That's a VM120, which is a 5-inch chuck, and so those jaws almost close perfectly are about 5-inch jaws. So that's a nice wide tenon at the bottom. At the end of the day, this bowl warped more than any bowl I've ever seen before, and the tenon's basically worthless. It might be able to sit down flat like a normal bowl, but I have it displayed as a platter. I like this one so much that I keep it, and I keep it in a vertical plate holder, so it's on display as a platter, as kind of like a wall piece, because it
Oh,
looks
that's what
so
I found.
cool.
Little
And
bug
like I
holes.
said, it was a crotch piece, so the
Hit
feathering
them
and the
bug
grain
holes.
in it is just amazing. It was hard to let this one go to give away or sell. I really like this piece, and the amount of time that I put into it was that factors a lot into whether I want to keep a piece or not. Is how much blood, sweat, and tears I put into a piece, and it's like, no, man, that's mine. I put all that work into it. I'm keeping it. So right here, I'm showing you some focus sanding. The wings are difficult to sand under power and motion with the lathe. And right here, I am cleaning up one of the chainsaw cuts, but I want to keep the natural edge cuts. And as you can see, these wings are less than 1/4 inch, man. And they were difficult to turn because they kept wanting to fold downwards. And so they needed to get quite a bit of cleaning up with sanding because the
Okay,
cuts
so
weren't
what
smooth
happened
on them.
was the battery died. I did some sanding and I applied some myelin cellulose sanding sealer. So hopefully it doesn't bleed this time around. I've got some small splits through that pithy stuff and a couple of bug holes. So I sanded up, put the sealer on, and now I'm putting some black CA on. And hopefully everything turns out. This has weird odd angles. It's going to be difficult to sand. I'm kind of an impatient turner. I just like to knock stuff out and get done with it. This has a lot of odd sanding and weird stuff going on in it. Not my normal cup of tea.
All right, so yeah, there's my thoughts on it. And like I said, I'm not happy about how long the bowl's taking, but that's fine. You know, the more you push yourself and you go outside your box and push your boundaries and your limits, the better you get at turning or whatever it is in life. You know, doing easy stuff repetitively doesn't grow you. Challenging yourself and overcoming difficulties is what grows you as a human and moves you forward. So this had a lot of challenges sanding, and what I'm talking about is, you know, the difficult angles. If you go under power and you're trying to sand that flat, well, it's also rubbing against the rim and putting a flat spot there that's noticeable more when people hold the bowl and are moving their fingers and running across it. So it took a
Oh,
while to
it's going to
clean up.
suck using the abrasive paste. That's going to be for sure. I'm going to have to come out with some ways to try and do it safely without breaking my hand.
Okay, and now normally I wouldn't put 2 coats of Mylan's sealer on, but since I focus sanded so many areas, I want to reapply the Mylan's and get a uniform finish so it looks even throughout the piece.
So I want like a more uniform look.
Man, isn't that some beautiful wood though? I've said it once, I'll probably say it 100 times. Cherry is so beautiful and probably some of my favorite wood to turn, hands down.
Some Axe abrasive paste.
Now, using Axe abrasive paste over Mylan cellulose sealer gives hands down one of my favorite finishes. I don't often do it on bowls that I use as a utility bowl that I plan for people for food use because of the questionable stuff that's in Mylan's. But for an artsy type bowl, it gives some of the most beautiful finish I've ever seen. And the Axe abrasive paste is just, man, it works beautifully over that sanding sealer as like the final, you know, sanding down over the sealer. Yeah, okay. You guys know what I mean though. And the finish is just amazing. And so what I was worried about here is trying to get the sand or the abrasive paste rubbed into the wings. Now what I have is a paper towel wrapped around a chunk of, it's called a kneeling pad, and it's for gardening, and it's probably 1.5 inches, maybe 2-inch thick piece of foam rubber that you kind of put down under your knees while you're kneeling down gardening. And so I kind of cut this stuff off in chunks and cut it to shape, and I'm using it as almost like a sanding block to stiffen up the paper towel and to keep it stiff while we're trying to sand the wings and give it a backing and firmness.
That's a good looking bowl.
So right there, I'm trying to kind of
happy with
rub
that.
in on the wings a little bit, just a little bit of the grit, and get a buffing on there and get the grit off the piece so it doesn't scratch further on down the road.
I got a little pointy
I'm
on the
going to
wings,
play
but there's nothing I can do.
further on down the road with other pieces with the Axe abrasive paste and possibly using
Except move forward.
buffing wheels and stuff for these harder to do pieces where
Which
I
is what we're
can't
gonna do.
use the lathe under power as much.
Moving forward should prove interesting. That's where most of the bad splits were. I've never realigned one of these things with each other. I do believe it has a pretty good shape. We'll see. Really didn't want to break one of these wings off any more than it already was. Oh, that's soft.
So I'm using my tool rest as a backing for, I've got a Tommy bar in the screw chuck piece, and I'm trying not to hit the wings on the tool rest. I'm trying not to drop the thing and damage these soft little flimsy wings. Once it dried out, they hardened up really good. But at this point, they were soft and kind of flimsy.
It's got a surprising amount of heft left in it. But that's sopping wet cherry, so it shouldn't be surprising. Let's hope I didn't sand too much away.
Okay, so now this is a good angle and shows the actual diameter of the piece. That's a 24-inch swing lathe, and I have to be careful where I place my banjo because I think those corners would actually clip the banjo if I didn't have the banjo placed properly. So that's a big piece. Corner to corner, it's probably every bit of 22 inches across. All right, we're back to my favorite part, which is the hollowing of the bowl. And we're
This
just
tool is
kind of
dull.
doing bulk removal. I love just the act of turning is what's fun for me, not the finished product. I mean, it is nice when you get a good finished project and you can look at it and you're like, oh man, that's really nice. But what decompresses me at the end of the day, that relieves my stress, that gives me a sense of enjoyment and fun, is putting my gouges and my tools into the wood and just watching the material fly and remove. So I love roughing material. I love doing big, heavy cuts and just watching the wood transform in front of me from a log into what I'm making. So man, it's just pure enjoyment when I get to remove the material. And it's at this point, it's kind of carefree. I'm not worried about shape or form or messing something up. I'm just having fun. And like I said, it's carefree. It's not stressful. Later on, when you're trying to keep the form, match things up, make sure you don't screw up the rim, make sure you don't mess up the wings, make sure you don't go through the bottom, then it's not as carefree and it's not as fun. It's more of a structured and purposeful turning. But at this point right here, it's just fun. So on these more shallow type bowls that are almost like a deep dish or a shallow bowl, or you know, the final depth is critical and important. You do not want to make a funnel on this, especially after how much time you've already put into it. Finishing the bottom completely, the sanding, the sealing, the abrasive paste, all that stuff. So I use a 3/8 inch spindle gouge and I just drill a depth hole. And this is kind of awkward and a little bit slow because of the wings, and you've got the top bead on top and then the shape of the bowl on the bottom. But it's a critical step to get that right so that you get a nice thin piece without going too thin. But I've said this before, that's an added benefit of keeping a decorative tenon on the bottom. If you do whiff that and go a little bit too deep, it's almost like a safety net, and you can, I don't want to say you should rely on that decorative tenon for bailing you out. You should practice turning thin correctly without a failsafe, but it's still there. You know what I mean, friends? Especially on a wide bowl, that's a 5-inch tenon, so that gives you a lot of wiggle room. So now normally I want to play around this long on the top of the bowl. I would have already been hollowing this thing out, but I want this to basically look like a bead on top of the wing. So I want to get this right. And that little knot in there, that part of the pith, is kind of aggravating me. I
That
don't want
sucks.
that in the rim. I don't want a repair job in the rim. So I'm trying to take down as much as I can without compromising the form. I want a solid bead on top that lets you know that this is a winged bowl or an emerging bowl. but I don't want that defect in the rim. I want a nice clean rim. So it's kind of a juggle of, oh, one more pass, and then, you know, that's the problem. You can take as much wood away as you want, but you can never put it back in. And when you try to fill it with stuff like sawdust shavings and glue or putties or CAs, it doesn't look right. Pure natural wood will always look better than a repair job. So, like I said, it's a gamble. It's a risk reward about how much you take away to try and get those imperfections out. And sometimes at the end of the day,
Feeling
you're
very
just
good,
better
man.
off leaving those imperfections in than going too far and taking that one more pass and doing something that you can't recover from. All right, and this was a decision. As you can see, I'm already showing signs of, I would call it fatigue. I'm having a really hard
Come on,
time
man.
hollowing this ball, and this is usually my favorite spot. So I'm not sure what's going on. I filmed this bowl probably 2-3 months ago. You know, I've had a problem with the move. The move was way more difficult than I thought. I still don't have my shop unpacked. I'm getting there. I hope to be turning in the new shop soon, like next week, hopefully. I had, this is Sunday morning. I'm doing the voiceover Sunday morning. I have an electrician coming out Monday morning to add 220 to the shop so I can plug my lathe in. And then hopefully we should be able to move forward from there. But, yeah, it's been a long, difficult year for turning for me and for keeping footage for you guys. You know, I broke my back in May. I was out for 3 months of work. As soon as I got back to work, I worked for 2 weeks and then moved to Texas and was living in a camper for a month. And now I'm at the house and nothing's unpacked and it's all crazy, and I want to get content out for you guys, but I've been kind of just not uploading as regularly as I would like to, and I'm kind of holding on to footage that I recorded in Michigan and trying to stretch it out to keep you guys, you know, to, you know, give you guys some stuff. But I have this dish and I think a sycamore platter, and then that's it. I'd better get to turning, man, and get you guys some new footage, because I don't want to lose y'all, man. You guys are my friends. So I'm having a really hard time hollowing in this bowl, and I left it in there. I go through 3 different gouges. I think it might have been fatigue for being at this thing for 4 hours or 5 hours, however long it took. And all the stress of fixing the pith and dealing with the bead and all this other stuff that I'm not used to. I'm used to just, you know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and move on to the next one. So I want y'all to know that you're not the only ones out there that struggle with a piece. But perseverance pays off, and you fight through the difficult times, and you eventually have something to show for it. So, you know, I don't know what it was, but I just had a really hard time hollowing this bowl. So I'm really trying to keep material in the bottom while I'm working the bead. And, you know, like I said, there's a defect in the rim, and I'm trying to get through it and just clean it up and get a smooth surface on that rim and the bead on top, and then we'll go through. But as you can see, man, I'm just getting skate back after skate back, and I go and sharpen, and I go and switch gouges, and I sharpen again, and then, you know, sometimes you have to slow down and do fundamentals. If you look at my hand right there, I'm locked in tight against the tool rest. My thumb is locked in tight against the gouge, and I get a good cut. You know, I can feel it. And so I slowed down, did things properly, went back to the basics instead of this kind of sloppy baseball grip that I have right now. That's my favorite. And I had much better results. But now here I go back to trying to go fast again. And, you know, it should be easy to just go into those pre-made grooves at an angle, at the correct angle, and just hollow. But I think even here I have difficulties, which is a testament of, you know, maybe I should have walked away. Well, you can't walk away. You can't walk away from a green piece, because if I would have walked away the next day, I probably wouldn't have been able to hollow the piece. It would have moved so much, and then parts of it would have been so thin that the piece would have been completely ruined. A lot of times in green wood turning, once you start something, you're committed. I don't take a lunch break. I don't go off and sit down for an hour or relax. Once I start a green piece, I finish it. I don't put a plastic baggie on it and walk away. I'm there for the duration of it, because sopping wet wood moves a ton. It's moving right now, especially, you know, you're turning at 1,000 RPMs, centrifugal forces is flinging all the liquid out, the air movement is moving all the liquid out, and it's drying at a rapid pace, and it's moving in there. That's why you got to constantly go back and tighten your chuck on greenwood turning. That's why the faster you get the piece done, the smoother it's going to be, because you're going to have less warping and less uneven turning. So I've got my big butter cutter, my favorite scraper, and look at that thing, man. It just hogs ribbons out. And I love it. I need to practice with it more out towards the rim. I always get a little bit shaky, and I use it for the bottom of the bowl, but towards out the rim, I always go and grab the negative rake. But it's a fantastic tool. I love that thing. And it's good to learn traditional scrapers. You should be proficient in as many tools as possible instead of just using one tool. Man, it's a tough, you know, I like to have a discussion with you guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Are you the jack of all trades with one tool? I know guys that are wizards, and they learn to use their bowl gouge as a scraper, as a, well, I want to say as a parting tool, but if you know, they use it just about as everything. They don't carry scrapers with them. I guess it makes sense if you're a traveling instructor, traveling demo guy, to get really good with one tool, because that's less stuff that you have to carry around with you in your luggage on a flight, less things that you have to sharpen and have ready to go for a demo. I get it. But at the same time, I would rather be able to just pick up any tool and be able to use it proficiently. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys more of, I use everything, or, oh, I got one favorite tool and that's it? Like, for example, throughout this bowl, I probably used 3 different bowl gouges to turn. I don't have, per se, a favorite one. Well, maybe I do. But for time's sake, I would rather just use 3 sharp ones that I already have sharpened, instead of going back to the sharpening station and sharpen the same tool 3 different times. You know what I mean? So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about that one. Are you carbide turners? Do you guys need a demonstration or a show of carbide turning? I've got a few carbide tools. I don't have a lot. I could go back and grab some and you know, show some techniques with those. That's what I taught myself on and learned on. Let me know what you guys want to see more of, because at the end of the day, I do this channel and these videos for you. I mean, I do get enjoyment and satisfaction out of making these and sharing my turning with you guys. But at the end of the day, my channel is for you, and I wouldn't have a channel without you guys. So if you guys want more instructional type videos, let me know. Do you guys want to see something on how I sharpen my tools? Do you want to see something on maintenance? Do you want to see carbide? Or do you just like to watch me turn a bowl? It's a hard read. I do get quite a few comments from quite a few regulars, and I love hearing it and I appreciate it. But it's sometimes hard to read what the audience wants out of me. I mean, I could keep turning what I want, and I don't know if that's what you guys want. I mean, if I was to do that, it would probably just be nonstop videos of me roughing out bulls. Because that's my favorite type of turning. Okay, that was a struggle getting through all that hollowing. That I kind of just talked through it because it was kind of rough. But we have those days. We all have those days. And I want y'all to know that professional turners, experienced turners have those days too. Don't feel bad. Don't get down on yourself if you have mistakes, if you have catches, if you blow a bowl up, or if you make a funnel. You know, it's not, a lot of times on these videos, all you see is a perfect and refined product, and it's a demo on how to do things. But most of the time, it's not reality. Okay? Don't get down on yourselves if you struggle. It takes a lifetime to master this stuff, if you can even master it, because it's so organic. It's not like a CNC guy that just programs in a bunch of code, hits the start button, and then all of a sudden he's got this crazy map of the world that's been laser etched, burned, and carved out. Okay? Turning is organic, it's freehand. There are a couple of jigs here and there, but for the most part, it is a very difficult skill to learn and to get good at, and then to continually stay good with it. So right here, I'm showing you that I had a hard time with the glue running everywhere, so I took it off the lathe, did all the glue down on the bottom on the bedways, and then remounted it. And then started, sanding under power again once the focus sanding was done down on the bedways. When I do stuff like that, I take off the whole chuck. I don't take the piece out of the chuck because I want it mounted back in the same spot. I don't want it to move and then have a different mounting point and then it be out of balance once I put it back on the lathe. So if you ever go through that situation again where you kind of need to remove the piece, I would highly suggest removing the entire chuck with the piece still in it. Do what you need to do, then remount your chuck. It will make sure that your piece remains true and is true once you get back to turning. All right, we're in the home stretch, guys. We're putting on that Axe wood paste, abrasive paste. Great product. I use it on a good number of my turnings. If I am doing any type of artsy project, I use it. If I do a utility bowl, I'm more of a just sand and oil and be done with it. But if I really want something to shine and look beautiful, I use Axe wood paste. And you can go to axewoodpaste.com and use code DACA15 and get 15% off your order and support a small business of a wood turner that supports wood turners. So go check out his site and use some Axe wood paste and make some beautiful stuff, because Axe wood paste is a wood turner's best friend. Go check it out, friends. And thanks for sticking around. I know this was a long, stretched out video, and man, I can't thank y'all enough for sticking around with me and hanging out and being my friends, and I really appreciate it. So we'll show a little bit of this finished beautiful bowl and maybe a little bit of still gallery, and we will catch you on the next time, hopefully in a week or two from my new shop in Texas. All right, friends, y'all have a good one. And of course, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share to all your friends and family and social media. And don't forget to leave me comments. I love hearing from y'all. All right, friends.